Recording in progress.
And I'm going to go ahead and play Grounded.
There you go. I'm going to go ahead and start letting folks in.
All right. I will start with Black Woman. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. So, we're going to start recording, just so folks know. We're going to be recording this live talk for future posting and uplifting on social media. But welcome, y'all. Welcome to the Trans Week of Visibility Artist Spotlight with Timeless Tate. It's so good to have y'all on the space. Just so y'all know, my name is Nathalie Nia Faulk. I am repping Alternate Roots. It's an organization that works at the intersection of organizing and arts, and we represent the global South. And so, yeah, we're fighting all forms of oppression using cultural organizing, artist work, and the power of community. You should totally look us up and be with us if you're watching this in the future, or if you're watching this right now. Get to know a little bit more about Alternate Roots. We're here today to show some love to a beautiful authoress, a magician of sorts. But first, as we do in typical Roots fashion, we want to ground ourselves. And so I'll invite folks into doing 3 breaths with me, one for the past, one for the present, and one for the future. We start by taking a deep breath, so deep that our bellies extend. Put our hands on our solar plexus. And we exhale. One breath for the past. For our ancestors, Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P., Sir Lady Java, the ancestors who paved the way for us to be here today. We breathe for them. And for our second breath, I like to place my hand on my third eye. Let's take a breath in and exhale. We take a breath for the future. The folks who are going to pick up the work that we've been doing. The folks who come after us, 7 generations in the future. Our young trans folks for their rights. And for all the folks who are going to be creating beautiful works like the Golden Moon once we're no longer able to. For our third breath, I like to place my hand on my heart chakra. And I take a breath in. And I exhale. And we breathe for everyone in the present moment. That's for all the folks in the room, the trans people who are organizing at the front lines for body autonomy, folks at the state capitals this legislative season, all the folks in alternative economies, and for all the creators like our author here today. We breathe for them. Thank y'all for taking a few breaths with me. And like I said, welcome to the space, y'all. Hey to all the beautiful folks who just joined. My name is Nathalie Nia Faulk. I am here with the Timeless Tate, who has been author of a beautiful book called Golden Moon. Just so y'all know, hey Timeless! And
Hey, love. Hey.
love. I don't know if it makes sense. Shout out to our tech person, Daisha. Daisha, if you could pin us or something like that for the video, let me know if that's possible. If not, that's okay. So yeah, y'all, just so y'all know, this is again being hosted by Alternate Roots, which is an organization which is at the intersections of cultural organizing and artist veneration. And we work across the global south. And so Thomas, of course, being a Southern belle herself, like myself, just has released this really amazing book. And so the reason why we're doing this is because it's Trans Week of Visibility. And so in order to make sure that we're increasing the visibility for all trans folks, Alternate Roots at its core has always uplifted gender equity. So that means we're making sure people are in alignment with values for anyone to come in of any identity and hold space and create art. We know that trans people are disproportionately represented in the artist field, and we know it's important for us to uplift the ways, the being, the magic that is transness, particularly in this time when there's anti-trans legislation, particularly in time when there's increased violence upon our bodies and our spirits. We know we have to do something to celebrate. And so this interview is so important because what better way to celebrate than to celebrate something that is manifested from a queer trans black lens, right? What better way to do that? And so I think I want to start off just by reading a little bit about the Golden Moon. I'm going to give y'all a little blurb, a little something, something, right? And then I might invite Timeless a little bit about their work. Give me 1 second to pull it up. So the Golden Moon is a pathway of love, romance, and freedom through Black queer stories and poetry. A journey with each poem and short story, you might find an element of mysticism and liberation. Through the short story entitled The Cat's Eye of Lincoln Drive, you'll explore a curious feline that has her eyes on a steamy romance. Through the short story entitled When Love Continues, you'll follow a woman who is a widow, but somehow her passionate connection to her husband continues endlessly. Through the short story entitled Vibrant, you will go on a roller coaster ride of diverse love stories, diverse love styles. And through the short story entitled Treasure of the Matriarch, you'll take a deep dive into a world of watering romance through a woman's love for her island, her people, a man, and her spiritual traditions. The vivid poetry and stories that flow through this book provide a golden viewpoint for liberation, strength, self-expression for all women in LGBTQ communities. So sit back, relax, and unwind. The reading will give you a love and freedom that is ours. Wow. Just reading that, it energizes me. And I had the lovely opportunity to read the book, and it is, y'all, it is a gift that keeps on giving. You keep finding treasures throughout the whole piece. And so today, I thought it would be really cool if we could have an artist spotlight on your work, Timeless. So I guess I'll turn it over to you to talk a little about who you are and why this book is so important to you. And I'm really curious about the dedication.
Oh, yes. Yeah. First and foremost, hey everyone. I love to see all the viewers. Thank you, Arts and the Roots, for even having me here today. So yeah, the work that I do, I'm a writer. I love writing stories. I'm also work for different social service organizations, doing humanitarian work. I'm really big on holistic care and making sure we have herbal medicine, making sure folks understand about advocacy work, particularly for Black and Brown folks, for my Black queer folks, right? And yeah, you mentioned a dedication in the book. So I have the book here with me. And basically, the dedication is 3 sentences, as people may already know. And so the first part of the dedication is simply saying, for any human spirit that dare to love and love again despite everything. So that simply means for anyone in this universe that has had a heartbreak, that had grief or loss, and they decide to love again and again, this book is for you. The other sentence talks about Black sisterhood and Black queer communities coming together. This book is for us, Black women, Black queer folks, right? The collective of us, the majesty of us, right? And so I want to make sure folks know that this book is for us, it's written for us. And then also, African descent is both living and ancestral. It's very important to me to give honor to the many that came before me, the African ancestors, and even our Black and Brown ancestors that came here. And so that simply means the ones that's living and the ones that's also in the spiritual realm, that they know that this book is also a ode, a homage, a honor, and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I think the 333 bread, 333 is the number of alignment, just the angel number of alignment for folks who don't know. That's why when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, this is the perfect way to ground folks because Thomas is also talking about these different dimensions in which trans folks, queer folks already exist in, particularly in Black love. So I guess y'all, I just want to explain to y'all, like, I'm going to ask Thomas a few questions, but in between those questions, we'll have some poetry being read. And so, again, this is a celebration, y'all. This is a chance to honor some of the beautiful work and to be thankful. This is our week for folks who are trans and queer. This is our week to be visible, to be out and proud, and to kind of toot our own horns. And so, our honk, I don't know, honk or toot our own, whichever one, both and. And so that's what we want to do today. We want to celebrate the work and we want to also talk about the context in which this work was made. And so I'll ask a few questions. Thomas will do a few poems, and then we'll open the floor for any questions that y'all might have. We're not gonna take a bunch. Obviously, it's a small group, so we don't need to do all that. But really, we're here to promote the work of Timeless, this beautiful work called Golden Moon. And so, Timeless, if we can, the first question I kind of wanted to ask you about was in the first poem, it's about self-expression and advocacy, right? And so in the first poem, it's entitled We Are Beautifully Rebellious. It talks about a person who is fighting or advocating and trying to push back in some type of way. This also shows up in the short story Vibrant. And so I'm curious if you can talk about why you felt it was important for us to show folks doing social justice work and self-expression that's meant to like fight against systemic oppression. And I'm curious about if you've ever had a rebel season.
Oh, yes. Good question. And so for me, the reason why I do any of this work is I want more Black queer storytelling. We have to have more characters that represents us, right? And so for me, I can't talk about us without talking about some of the things that we have to fight against, some of the things that we have to use as tools like social justice. And so in the poem, We Are Beautiful Rebellious, I actually announce a lot of the things that we have to do to fight back against all the things. And also, it's important too to have stories and poetry to actually be used for human rights and for just anything. And so, for me, it's an important part of me to add this into the work. You mentioned the story vibrant. I think the folks gonna live for the story vibrant. And there's definitely a scene where it's centering social justice, it's centering community, it's centering fighting back and understanding that we are divine beings and we also have voices. And we got to fight for Black human rights and Black queer folks' human rights. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I thought it was so telling when I read that scene in Vibrant because there are so many trans people, whether they like do it for work or not, that is their work, right? They're transforming and fighting against systemic oppression that like sometimes we don't even understand is like impacting our bodies in ways that I'm like, oh, this is why I'm so tired every day. Oh, this is why I feel really sick
Mm-hmm.
every day. I am literally fighting something that like just by getting out of bed, I'm fighting this thing, right? And so there are so many beautiful trans and queer folks who, just by existing, are pushing up against so many of the systemic oppressions and traumas that people every day are facing, not even just trans folks, right? Looking at Sir Lady Java, looking at all these people who were fighting in the labor rights movement, who were fighting in all of these different places, but they were just actually fighting for their own right to exist. And so I really thought that was really dope of you to, yeah, add into the story.
Yeah, yeah. And I just hope that, like, I think we'll talk about later too. Like, it's a tool for us to use to make us feel good, to also activate any type of action to change the system that we're in and to continue because we've been doing this already for millennia. Okay, we've been existing,
True
and
tea.
so all we are doing is completely just pouring more into the cup, so more folks in our community can learn about those tools of advocacy, storytelling, things like that. That's already in our African indigenous cultures.
Come on, speak it, speak it, speak it. So, well, speaking of in our African indigenous cultures, throughout the book, there's a particular word that you use often, and it's rise. I was gagged. I was like, there's a poem here, and throughout every book and every story, the word rise shows up so many times. I'm curious, can you talk about your invitation to your readers to rise, and why does it show up so many times in the book?
Yeah, come on, understanding the symmetry and all the symbolisms. So rise, the book is called y'all go to moon, and so for me, we have to understand the moon is, to me, is giving a ode to feminine energy, mother energy, and also what I know about the moon is it rises, so we should rise with it. Don't let anything in the human plane try to tear you down. So rise with the moon, and the moon is omnipresent to let you know that there's someone on the other side watching you through this process. You're not alone, right? And so I use in the poem Rising to simply means it's an affirmation poem for personal and communal. And I hope that folks use this poem by themselves to heal themselves. Certain things I say in there to make sure you understand you're healing yourself. And then we can also do it in community. You can do it at birthday parties and events. Just give me some credit now. If you use my poem, say, hey, Timeless wrote it. But this poem is definitely meant for communal and personal use. And I think letting folks know rising is the only way, honey.
Yeah.
Rising, rising, and more rising. And ode to uprises that may need to happen too.
Okay, look. And that's why I love you, Thomas. That's why I love this book. She's like, yes, don't get me wrong. I am divinely aligned with the planetary bodies, and I will act a fool too. I'm healing, and we will have to uprise if we need to. Yeah.
Yes, love. I mean, we have to understand we are creative and we are soft, we are healers, right? But there are times when things hurt our civilizations, hurt our tribes, right? And there are certain things we may have to use to make sure we are protecting ourselves. And so I think I'm using the tool of storytelling and this tool of centering Black queer folks and stories in advocacy work, and there's so many other tools too spiritually we can use um, to make sure we all are getting the things we need.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, that feels good. So if you heard it here, just like the moon rises, the sun rises every day, no matter what you're facing, you can rise too. That feels
Mm.
beautiful. I think, Timeless, this is a perfect moment for some poetry. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna invite you to read Iridescent from the Golden Moon. Make sure you get the Golden Moon, get your copy. You can buy it on her website. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Barnes and Nobles. We will be dropping the link to that. And yeah, Timeless, take it away.
Since the ancient Egyptian times, we have flourished on this earth and called it minds, and live brilliantly outside the lines. Although we have been kicked out of churches, forgotten in history, silenced in politics, outcast in society, still, like the luminous sun, we rise. My LGBTQ community, my beloved brothers, sisters, and siblings, Black, white, tall, short, skinny, or thick, take pride in yourselves. Hold your heads high. We are the diamonds in the sky. You are not a mistake, a defect, a sinner, or confused. You are amazingly designed and beautifully divine. Let's never forget the trailblazers that came before us. James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, Nikki Giovanni, Francis Thompson, Bayard Rustin, Alvin Ailey, Marsha P. Johnson, Crystal Abeja, Elin Harris, Sylvester, Richmond Barthay, Wilman Barnex, Jackie Shane, Octavia St. Laurent, and many more of our ancestors. We are artistic and imaginative, from architecture to hair, from literature to fashion, from dance to medicine. We are human. We are the people. We are a community. We are citizens. We are the colors and shades of liberty that defines America. Iridescent.
Oh, yes, God. Yes, God. Come on, right? That was absolutely beloved. Oh,
Thank you, baby.
I was just like feeling it feels so good for you to just utter those names. And I can almost feel that spirit, the spirit and just of like them coming over us and protecting us and just kind of guiding us in. So thank you for just bringing us in. I really like that poem because it's one of those that looks upon our past and it also speaks to the many ways in which we exist and our magic exists in such an easy way. Okay. How are you feeling before I can go into my next question?
I'm feeling good. I'm
Okay,
feeling good. I
okay.
hope that people enjoyed the poem. And like you said, it's definitely ode to our ancestors, our queer and Black ancestors who paved the way. A lot of people like that poem. And I like doing this poem in public space. And I'm hopeful that, the people buy the book and also they understand this poem is meant to be an oral sacred, an oral ceremony for folks to use by themselves and in other events. Just give me some credit, but definitely it's meant to be used. This is something that should be spoken way past I live.
Yeah.
Our next generation should be speaking these words and understanding this is magic. This is beauty to continue. So yeah.
The word that came up for me was alchemy. Like transforming
Yes.
like darkness or like hardship into like something that is brilliant and like homaging and homage to. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Even the way you speak it had like a particular like rhythm or prayer to it, you know? I was like, yes, just like the way she's speaking it. Um, yeah, I like I don't know if I have a weird Zoom filter on. I'm like, what's going on with my I look so like weird. Um, and that's okay. So the next question thing I wanted to ask you about.
You look good to me.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you,
Okay.
sister. Thank you, sister. I'm like, what's going on with this like filter? Anyways, are like, is it I don't know what's going on. The light just
Yeah.
everywhere, child. Anyways, so this book is also a book
Okay.
that contains erotica. And I am so curious about one of the, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so spicy for me. I was like, oh my God, thank you, Darius one. Thank you. I was like, oh my God, this is so good to see myself and other Black women portrayed and other Black like body trans queer bodies portrayed in intimate ways felt so good. And one of the stories particularly, we get to witness a non-traditional couple, a throuple or a whatever, a polycule. There are so many different names for it. Can you tell me why it's important to portray a, a different version of like relationships, polyamory even in your book?
Yeah. Once again, another highlight that you found. That's a gem in the book. It's important that we talk about diverse love styles. It's all types of relationships going on in society, right? It's just not monogamy going on. We have polyamory, we have interracial love, we have all types of things going on. It was important to mention this in my romantic stories because I feel like we as Black queer folks are doing that type of expansive loving, right? We are the ones breaking the mold to say, I may need a little extra this, or I may want this and that, right? And I think as a collective of us, some of us are monogamous and some of us are poly. And some of us are just finding ways to love self, which is beautiful. So it's important to me to talk about all of that in my romance novels. And of course, too, I had to drop in a little sexuality. I think human sexuality is the heart rhythm of us, right? I think for most folks, it's a beautiful, joyful occasion,
Yeah.
right? We need to be documenting that.
Mm.
Black queer women are having sex, right? We should have it in storytelling. And it should be done in a way that you feel good and it feeds the sensories. And so I made sure I wrote about all those things too, to make sure the reader feels like, oh, girl, you talking to me. This is good. This is juicy, right? I think as queer folks, we need to see ourselves on paper, in stories and media, loving, kissing, holding hands, right? And
Yeah.
also things in the bedroom. And so it was important to bring that into the storytelling. So yeah,
Yeah.
we
Oh
got to
my
do
God. I
it.
love the idea of the sensories being activated. Yeah, I was activated. I was activated, girl. I was like,
I've
oh.
heard it from so many other people. So yeah, it's definitely
I like
getting the things going.
I'm almost blushing even thinking about reading it. I was like, this is actually so good. I'm like, so y'all have to go and get into this book because it shows the importance of the like, yeah, of Black women being loved in ways that don't feel, what is it, hypersexualized or don't feel like, tokenized or don't feel like portrayed in ways that are kind of just meant for like the male gaze or like for the white
Hmm.
gaze. It's kind of really for the girls.
Thank you for saying that too. You made a major point. All of these women are in some form of healthy relationships,
Yeah.
right? And I think we don't see Black trans women, Black cis women, Black queer women, Black lesbian women, Black bisexual women. I name all the things in the book.
Okay, look.
That's all the letters are represented. We don't see us being loved properly, someone having our back. And that's also in the book. I'm gonna be honest, it is positive Black male representation.
Yeah.
Good guys do exist. And I think some of them have chosen us. Hello. Yes.
Hello.
And so it's important just to write those things too. And if it doesn't exist in your life, this is once again alchemy, affirmation to bring it into your life. Also, the book has lesbian sex scenes for women who want to make sure that we have writing and stories that represents lesbian love and all the fluidness and the freedom of it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this is a book for everyone. Single, taken, all the things. Um, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And the thought of it being affirmation, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. This is
Mm-hmm.
affirmation. This is like me reading
Mm-hmm.
and reading and almost training my mind to what I want. and what I desire. I want that easeful love. I might want some polyamory love. I might want some lesbian love, honey. You know, who knows? All those things, being able to speak that, it starts like radical imagination starts with like bringing it to reality. So because you put this and you had radical imagination, Timeless, other people like myself are able to actually visualize it and read it. So I can't
Here
thank
we
you for
go.
that. I can't thank you.
Yes, thank you. Once again, that's the acne work you mentioned earlier. You know, this book is if you haven't thought about someone loving on you, here's one example, one visualization. Close your eyes, skip with the writing, and see what you want for yourself. Carve out your own lane. And I think this book does that for folks who is still searching, who already have it in their life, and just who wants more abundance of love and romance. So yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go to this question around unity. In the story Vibrant, we see a lot of unity between in the relationships, the friendships, right? Can you talk a little bit about why we need unity in the trans and queer community?
Whew, where do we begin, honey? Um, it's important that Black queer folks have unity and actually have friendships with each other. Okay, actually having care for one another. We are before dark times, whenever we need to have each other as community anyway, because we can actually relate to one another on different levels. It's also important in times like right now, right? When we are maybe seeing with all type of oppression and all types of hits and all types of harm coming our way, we're gonna need some hugs. We're gonna need that friend, that best friend talking to us. We're gonna need some type of community coming together. And I'm gonna bring up one toxic thing that we do as a community, because we have to mention what's dividing us, understand how we can be unified. There was a time where Black, gay, and lesbian did not want anything to do with Black trans folks.
Yeah.
Not mentioning trans people, not adding trans folks at events, at birthday parties, at Black queer events. Removing the T is not going to bring unity, right?
Come
And
on.
so part of that is understanding your sister, understanding your Black trans brothers, understanding and building that friendship. And so in the story Vibrant, there's Black queer friendship, an example of how one model we can do it. And I think if each one of us had two friends that had our back and made us laugh and made us cry, we doing something in our life.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think as folks, we need to have that community building. Yeah, I think that's what we need. That's the medicine.
Absolutely. And it
So
only
yeah,
takes two,
yeah.
like you said, it only takes two people. And one thing I really love about your book is it will take you through the full range of emotions. Like you will feel turned on, you will cry a little bit whenever you're realizing that, oh my God, like there's a I don't mean to spoil it, but there was a part of this book that was showing a death ritual, in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what happens,
Mm-hmm.
like how do we prepare our bodies for death and for transitioning on to the next life? So you will like be able to move through grief ritual and death ritual. Now there was a practice. We're not gonna say ritual. There's a practice that was there. It is prayer, and it's funny. Like Vibrant is just funny as hell. You just tackle it out with the friends, funny. And one thing that's really particular about Golden Moon, is that you have put so many different tools just by sharing the ways that we exist and the ways that we be for how we can move
Mm,
and navigate through life. And I just find it so good. I'm like, the comedy it broke me up. I
mm.
was like, oh, we having fun. Okay, okay. So yes, that is
Yes.
the unity that we need.
Thank you, sister, for seeing that in the work.
Yes,
You know,
God.
I hope other folks resonate with that same way. Because like you said, it can be used in many ways.
Yeah.
And also like you go through the range of emotions. The book can have you crying. There's certain things I wrote to make sure it hit the soul. There's certain things I wrote to make sure it makes you feel inspired, motivated to do more, to dream bigger. There's things that feed the sensories and make you feel good and tingly, right? And it's things that make you feel like honor,
Yeah.
glorious, royal. And that's one of the stories I can't talk about because it's really big. The reader will understand. But yeah, it's all the things. This has a jambalaya of soulful things in writing. So yeah.
Absolutely. I have a question around the current state. So it's not about the book particularly, but it's about the current state of trans folks, right? We can't talk about trans visibility without talking about the things that are trying to impede or stop folks from being visible. Right now, there's it's a contentious time to be trans, to be Black, to be a woman. They have already killed Roe versus Wade. They're already coming for young people's abilities to transition. And all throughout it, we still see intimate partner violence between trans folks. We still see a lot of like disparity in trans folks having access to jobs, housing, education, healthcare. Um, can you talk a little bit about how your work is challenging the anti-trans legislation and the anti-trans sentiment that we're seeing? And what issues do you think we should be talking about right now in the political sphere, in the social sphere?
Mm, yes, yes, yes. Oh, so this book to me provides a place for joy, a place of pleasure, and a place of dreaming and actually having freedom in a time of harsh oppression.
Yeah.
Some people have said they read the book and they don't remember, they don't have any inkling of oppressiveness, right? So this book creates a space where trans folks are in leadership, we're in management. Trans folks are in love, they're in marriages, they have abundance of money. The story talks about also trans folks having an island and things, right? Um, and so, like, for me, what we seeing in reality and what this book is talking about is two different things. And I think it gives us a piece of like, ooh, what if, right? I mentioned before, my poems are meant to be spoken in public spaces. You can use these poetry at rallies. You can use these poems also to speak to yourself before you have to walk out the front door to deal with things, right? Um, I also use a lot of symmetry in this poem too, just to make sure you understand there's so much going on, but what's most important is going on within yourself, right? Um, and also, I feel like one of the things I would love for folks to talk more about, we kind of do this already, but just you can use these stories and these poems as plays and movies, creating more Black queer jobs, okay?
Come on.
Getting more funding through arts and creative ways is another way we can fight back. Art advocacy, using stories like this on stages and movies to talk about the things as well is how we can use this. Um, and I'm also hopeful that folks start using ways of community building, underground ways as well too, to connect with one another around the systems, right?
Mhm.
Right. Um, so I think this book can be used in many ways to fight against oppression. And I just hope folks find that and resonate with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When you
Yeah.
talk about like the underground ways, I'm like, I'm already planning to use this as a book reading group. I'm like, I'm gonna get me and my girls together. We're gonna have some wine and we're gonna read not just the fun stuff, but we will be reading the erotica, but we will also
Okay.
we will also be able to talk about, wow, what did it feel like to read the way in which she was in a position of power. We have a CEO in Vibrant. I was like, yes, a trans CEO. I love to see it. And what does it look like and feel like whenever we are able to hold those positions of power and make decisions about our lives in ways that it feel self-determined? And so I think just all of those possibility models feel really good, time that they feel really good. And they provide alternatives to the trans legislation. Like even talking about underground stuff, right? This book club can also be a place where people are sharing hormones. This can be a place, and we're not gonna say too much because we don't want them to know all our stuff, right? But
Mm-hmm,
be a place
mm-hmm.
where like
I'm
people
picking
can
up.
gather together to share resources and build upon and fill in for what the state is trying to take away from us. So I really just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just think that this is such a strategic way to build power, using it through culture and arts. And I can't say thank you enough for it. I do have a last question before we talk about
Uh-oh.
like, you know, before we get to hear one of my favorite poems in the book. Um, and this one is for Roots in general. Roots is consistently one of the people in the spaces who are saying, hey, you have to have art, you have to have culture, you have to have healing. These have to be at the center of your strategies. Care-based strategies make sure that you have sustained artists, make sure that you have sustained organizers, and make sure that people are not moving from a place of burnout and that the fuel is actually joy, right? The fuel isn't just anger. The fuel isn't just like, I have to get back, I have to fight these people. That it's fuel that's rooted in joy, celebration of culture, and in maintaining the wellness and wholeness of the people who are fighting the good fight, right? So I'm super curious, how has liberation led to how has your art led to your personal liberation and healing? And how can it lead to others' liberation and healing? And I think you talked a little bit about it actually, but if you could just reiterate that for us, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be roots if we didn't talk about how art is at the center.
Come
So,
on, art is at the center. Yes, yes. For me personally, my journey with this book, it took me 5 years, y'all, to write this book to completion. I remember starting to around 2019, 2020. I was like, okay, I need to give some of my creations to the world. All the poems I done since I was 15, all the stories I wrote, I need to read them back and try to revise them and give them as an offering. So for me personally, this book gave me ownership, residual income, to be quite honest. And I think it's important for Black queer folks to understand when you have a thought, to find a way to make sure it's reality for us, right? This book can be read for however libraries and whenever these companies still want to have ownership, right? I think there's so many other Black queer writers right now is going to be sparked and already doing the good work to say, hey, I need to have a book in my name as well. So it gave me ownership. It also taught me about the biggest thing, to make sure you continue giving offerings. Make sure you're rooting yourself in healing. And so this book feels like cocoa butter on the heart. It feels like reminding ourselves to honor our ancestors and honoring the people that came before us all around us, and to be offering, continue to be a cycle of offering. And so the book is now community, and I can't wait to see all the ways people use it. And I think people can, once again, how they can heal themselves is sitting with the poetry, sitting with all the messages that you learn, because we are divine beings. We are majestic, phenomenal people. And no one is going to take that from us. It's our birthright, it's our spiritual powers. And this book echoes that. It can give it right back to you.
absolutely. That's literally what I need to hear. I need to hear that our creation, our rooting ourselves in our history, rooting ourselves in our creativity will free us, will heal us. It is our birthright. Yes. Thank you, Timeless. I think so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to holla at us in the chat and we'll read them out. But I think the best way to like move is one of my favorite poems, Woman of Our Kind. Timeless, can I invite you to read that?
Yes, 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 ma'am. Women of my kind, women of my kind, women of my kind, women of my kind, we are so divine. Women of my kind have hair that can be afros, straights, curly, braids, locks that ought to be celebrated in every room. Women of my kind have noses that are full, wide, round, small, slender, other color, brown, black, and other glorious hues. Women of my kind have experienced days, nights, months, seasons of the sweetest and saddest of human emotions. Women of my kind have often felt the highest of pleasure and deepest of intimacy at night, yet the deafest of silence and the swiftest abandonment in the morning. Women of my kind are too familiar with loving, supporting, celebrating with sisters and brothers and siblings today, just to hear the eulogies and witness their visuals tomorrow. Women of my kind have always known we have been right there on the front lines and in the center of activism movements. Yet, the streets and mainstream media keep us hidden like pariahs. Women of my kind harness abilities that are metamorphosis, herbal medicine, sexual healing, aura and energy transcending. Women of my kind come in different versions that can be tall or petite, slim or thick, penis or vagina, only hormones or all surgery. Just know when you see us, we are unique, ancient, and royalty. So when you see me, you see her, you see us, the royal concubine women, the mermaid women, the transgender women, the Lost Atlantean women, the Amazonian women, the African indigenous priestess women. These are all my sisters, women of mysticism and mystery, women of my kin and soul ties, women of mysticism and mystery, women of my kin and soul ties, women of my kind, women of my kind, women, women of my kind. We are so divine. And that's the poem.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sister. Absolutely. Women of my kind. That is one of my favorite pieces. Wow, I can't say thank you enough. I just was just really beautiful. For me, it's mantra work. It's mantra work, right? I'm like
Yes.
Amazonian in this bitch. You
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Thank you
You
so much,
know,
sister.
no, thank y'all for having me here to give this offering to y'all. Um, it makes me kind of like want to be watery and cry. We need more of this, by the way. And so I just feel honored to be in this space, honored to have these viewers watching and listening. And that poem also, it does help so many women when they hear it and they read it. I heard some good things already from community folks. So yeah, thank you for having me here to share it.
Of course. I'm gonna leave room if anyone has any questions. Feel free to drop
No
them in the
question.
chat. Right? If we are come off mute and say them, we'll give some space to that. Thank you, Catherine. Just a lot of affirmation.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, there's a few things we want to tell y'all before we go. And if you have questions, please populate them in the chat while I wrap us up a little bit. Um, there you can buy the book The Golden Moon on Timeless's website, The Feminine Gardens. Do you want to talk a little bit about The Feminine Gardens?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
Feminine Gardens
yeah.
was founded in 2020. It is a wellness organization that I'm trying to do with holistic care. I focus on sleep health, herbal medicine. I focus on stress management and also just relaxation support. I'm really big on that. You know, all these things hitting us. Sometimes we are burnt out. Sometimes we are stressed out. Sometimes we're not sleeping our best. This herbal stuff, this holistic care within feminine gardens that I do mainly, it's for us. It's for women. It's for queer folks, Black and brown folks. And I'm so happy to be doing this work because the organization is needed. We need more of it. You know, and so that's what I do with Feminine Gardens.
Yes. So you can find the book on you got an affirmation, you have a wonderful voice, which I couldn't agree with more. Um, you have so the Feminine Gardens, you can buy it on the website there. There's an info sheet that has been dropped. You can also buy it on Amazon, and you can also buy it at Barnes and Nobles. There's an info sheet that we're going to continue to drop to make sure that y'all get all that. You can stay in touch with Timeless on Instagram at Timeless Tate and at the Feminine Gardens. You can also stay in touch with Roots on IG, at Alternate Roots on Twitter, at Alt Roots, and on Facebook at Alternate Roots. And if you're interested in deepening your practice with gender equity, you can definitely email us. My email is in that info doc. We always want to be uplifting more artists from the trans and queer communities around the region. So if you want to do an artist spotlight like this, we want to spotlight you and your work. I think those are all the things that I need to say.
All
So,
right. All right. The
I,
girl had fun. Thank you for having me over to visit.
right. It was nice. Yes, y'all, this was nice. This has been Artist Spotlight with Timeless Tate. Y'all go make sure to purchase the Golden Moon. Y'all make sure y'all uplift this Trans Week of Visibility. Y'all make sure that you support a trans person in your community. Y'all make sure that you dig into Alternate Roots, an organization who uplifts art and organizing practice from all across the region. We love y'all and thanks so much for being here. Y'all take care.